The city, a sprawling beast of glass and concrete, breathes a shallow, gray light into your solitary apartment. Dust motes, like tiny forgotten galaxies, dance in the weak sunbeams slanting through the grimy window pane. You trace the rim of a chipped ceramic mug, the warmth long fled, mirroring the chill that often settles in your bones. Seth Corbin. The name once carried the weight of authority, the sharp edge of a mind that cut through shadows. The scent of stale coffee and old paper is your constant companion, a testament to the quiet exile you've carved out. Your gaze drifts to the framed photograph on the cluttered desk. A younger you, resolute, standing beside a grinning colleague, badges glinting. That was before. An unsolved puzzle, a phantom's taunt that ripped apart not just a life, but your life, piece by agonizing piece. The case was a wound that never truly healed, a festering absence that defined your disgrace. The insistent buzz of your burner phone, a relic you keep for precisely these unwelcome intrusions, slices through the quiet. Your jaw tightens. No one calls you anymore unless they're truly desperate or truly lost. The caller ID is a blocked number, a phantom in itself. You let it ring, a silent battle waged against the urge to answer, against the pull of a world you swore you'd abandoned. But the buzzing persists, a relentless siren call. You sigh, the sound a ragged whisper in the stillness, and answer. The voice on the other end is clipped, urgent, belonging to a junior detective you vaguely recall from your final tumultuous days. Seth? It's the detective. We need you. Now. Penthouse boardroom. Top floor of the old Sterling Tower. There's something you need to see. The words are rushed, breathless, a frantic energy vibrating through the line. You hear the telltale crackle of a distant radio, the low thrum of urgency. I'm out, you state, your voice a gravelly murmur, thick with disuse. My badge is gone. My reputation is a punchline. Find someone else. No, the detective insists, a desperate plea underlying the command. You won't believe it. Exactly like yours. The signature, the location. He's back, Seth. Or he never left. The words hit you like a physical blow. The Chronos Killer. Impossible. You had failed, and the city had never forgotten. Against your better judgment, a flicker ignites within you, a dangerous curiosity that you thought long extinguished. The ghost of a detective, stirred from his slumber. The journey to the Sterling Tower is a blur of city lights and the persistent throb in your temples. The elevator ride up feels interminable, each floor a rising tide of unwelcome memories. When the doors finally part, you step into the sterile opulence of the penthouse boardroom during an emergency call. The air is thick with tension, a palpable hum of fear and frantic energy. The room, usually reserved for power brokers and high-stakes deals, is now a chaotic tableau. Uniformed officers mill about, their faces grim, their voices hushed. Technicians in sterile gloves move with practiced precision around a large holographic display projected onto the polished mahogany table, its surface reflecting the grim scene. Your eyes are drawn immediately to the display. The victim is a young woman, her face obscured, but her posture. A gasp catches in your throat, a sharp, involuntary sound. It's the pose, the precise, almost artistic arrangement of the limbs. The head turned just so, the subtle tilt of the chin. It's the same macabre tableau that haunted your nightmares for years. The signature of the Chronos Killer. Seth. The junior detective, his face pale and drawn, steps forward. His eyes, wide with a mixture of fear and reluctant awe, meet yours. We found her an hour ago, an anonymous tip, just like the others. You ignore him, your gaze fixed on the holographic image. Your mind races, tearing through the dusty archives of your memory. You remember the first victim, found in an abandoned factory, The second in a disused dockside building. Always derelict, forgotten places. The detective nods slowly, his gaze dropping to the table. Yes, tucked into her hand. A small antique timepiece. The antique timepiece. The Chronos Killer's macabre signature, left at every scene, a mocking gesture of his control over time itself. The detail that earned him his infamous moniker. Any witnesses? You press, your voice gaining a sharp edge, the old instincts long dormant, now snapping awake. None. The warehouse was empty. No forced entry, no signs of struggle. Clean, Seth. Too clean. You lean closer to the display, your eyes scanning every pixel, searching for the impossible. The absence of struggle, the lack of forensic evidence. It was the hallmark of the Chronos Killer. A senior inspector, a burly man with a perpetually furrowed brow, approaches, his arms crossed over his chest. His gaze, once dismissive, now holds a grudging respect, tinged with a flicker of suspicion. Corbin, glad you could make it. The brass wants your input. Officially, it's just a consultation. Unofficially, we're desperate. You barely register his words. Your mind is already consumed, a storm of memories and deductions swirling within you. The impossible has happened. The phantom has returned. The hunt, it seems, has just begun. And this time, you know, failure isn't an option. You are here, not by choice, but by a summons you could not ignore, a siren song of dread that has pulled you from the quiet decay of your self-imposed exile. The polished mahogany table reflects your grim visage, a distorted echo of the man you once were. Each breath feels like an effort, the air thick with unspoken accusations and the phantom scent of old failures. A figure enters, silhouetted for a moment against the brighter hall. It is the chief, his face etched with a weariness that speaks volumes, his shoulders slumped beneath the weight of new tragedy. Neither of you moves to sit. The formality of the setting feels almost grotesque, a thin veneer over the raw urgency of the moment. You've heard the reports, I assume? The initial findings? You offer no verbal confirmation, merely a tightening of your jaw. The storm within you, first a distant rumble, now crashes against the walls of your composure. You have heard. He was discovered this morning. And the scene. It's a mirror, Seth. An exact, horrifying reflection. He pauses, letting the words hang in the sterile air, knowing their impact on you. The precision, the lack of forced entry, the way he was found, almost arranged. It's him, isn't it? The phantom. The name, a ghost from your past, scrapes against the raw edges of your soul. A shield you've worn for years. And what makes you think I'm the one to look now? My insights cost me everything. My badge, my reputation, my peace. The chief steps closer, his gaze now unwavering, desperate. Because no one else saw it, Seth. Not then. You were the only one who understood the pattern, the art of it. The signature. His voice drops, a plea woven into the words. We're lost, Seth. The new lead investigator, the entire task force, they're drowning in data, but they lack the vision. Why would I walk back into that particular hell? The memory of the public humiliation, the quiet judgment of your peers, the gnawing certainty that you were right, yet powerless to prove it. It all rises, a suffocating wave. Let them stumble. Let them learn the hard way, as I did. This isn't about pride, Seth. The chief insists, his voice gaining an edge of urgency. This is about a monster who has returned. And this time, he's bolder, more brazen. The scene. There's something new. Something he left behind. A message, perhaps. A challenge. Your eyes narrow. A challenge. That would be like him. The Phantom was always a showman, a macabre artist. What message? You demand. The word pulled from you despite your resolve to remain detached. The chief reaches into a worn leather satchel he carries, pulling out a sealed evidence bag. It is no larger than your thumb, its wings spread as if in mid-flight, its tiny eyes inlaid with chips of obsidian. The craftsmanship is exquisite, almost delicate. He places the bag on the table between you. Found clutched in the victim's hand, he explains, his voice hushed. No fingerprints, no fibers, nothing. Just this. The medical examiner says it was placed there post-mortem, a final, deliberate gesture. You lean forward, your breath catching in your throat. Your gaze locks onto the wooden bird. It is not the bird itself, but the type of bird, the specific species. A northern shrike, a butcher bird. Your mind races back, a sudden blinding flash. You had dismissed it then, a mere tangential note in a mountain of dead ends, too obscure, too poetic for the grim reality of the crimes. The chief watches your face, observing the subtle shift in your posture, the sudden intensity in your eyes. You recognize it, don't you? It's an old style. Very old. The Phantom. He had been there all along, watching, learning, perfecting his macabre craft. The shrike was a direct taunt, a personal invitation. He knew you would see it. He knew you would understand. The impossible has happened. Send you a message. The old wounds ache, but the sting is now fuel. This isn't just a case. It's a challenge, a personal vendetta against the ghost that stole your life. Give me everything, you demand, your voice firm, devoid of the earlier bitterness. Every file, every photograph, every discarded theory. I want access to the scene. I want to speak to the first responder, anything you need. You pick up the evidence bag, the small wooden bird feeling impossibly heavy in your hand. The penthouse boardroom, once a symbol of your forced detachment, now feels like the crucible where your shattered life is being reforged. The Phantom had made his move. Now it was your turn. And this time, you would not fail. You hold the small bird aloft, turning it slowly in the harsh glare of the overhead lights. Carved from dark wood, possibly ebony, its smooth surface is cool against your fingertips. No obvious markings, no trace evidence beyond what the crime scene team already collected. You lower the bird, placing it carefully back into the evidence bag. The city's distant hum is a muted counterpoint to the frantic energy crackling in the room. Detectives swarm, their voices clipped and urgent as they coordinate the initial sweep. Your phone vibrates. It's the detective, his name flashing across the screen. You ignore it. He's made it clear where you stand. Outside. Let him have the stage. You'll work in the shadows where you always belonged. Instead, you focus on the room. The way the expensive Persian rug is slightly askew, as if someone had stumbled. A faint, almost imperceptible floral scent clinging to the air. Not the victim's cologne, not the generic cleaning products. Something else. You move to the large windows overlooking the city. The glass is spotless, offering an uninterrupted view of the sprawling metropolis below. You can almost feel the weight of its indifference, its vastness swallowing individual tragedies whole. Find anything interesting, Seth? The detective. He appears at your elbow, his expression a mask of professional curiosity and thinly veiled hostility. Just admiring the view, you say, your voice flat? Right. Well, try not to contaminate the scene. This isn't your playground anymore. You don't respond, merely turn and walk towards the door. As you pass the conference table, you snag a stray pen, a cheap plastic thing emblazoned with the company logo. You pocket it. Small details. They matter. Back in your car, the city lights blurring through the rain-streaked windshield, you finally answer the detective's call. Corbin, you say, where the hell did you go? I had questions. And I had answers, you reply, but I doubt you'd like them. Cut the crap, Seth. You can almost hear the detective's teeth grinding. Stay out of this, Corbin. You're a civilian. You interfere, and I'll have you arrested. Threats? Is that all you've got? You sever the connection, tossing the phone onto the passenger seat. The glow of the screen illuminates the small wooden bird in the evidence bag. Time to revisit the past. Your destination. The dusty, forgotten archives of the police department. You still have a few contacts. People who remember the Seth Corbin before the fall. People who owe you favors. The archive is a labyrinth of cardboard boxes and forgotten files, the air thick with the scent of aged paper and regret. Sensitive material, Seth. You know that. I know, but I also know you owe me one. He sighs, relenting. All right. But keep this between us. I could lose my job. He leads you to a secluded corner, stacks of boxes rising like ancient monuments. He points to a label. Nightingale Murders. Inactive. Be careful, Seth, he says, his voice low. That case. It was cursed. You ignore his warning, already pulling down the first box. Inside, yellowed documents, crime scene photos, witness statements. The ghosts of the past waiting to be resurrected. You spend hours poring over the files, the details of the original Nightingale murders replaying in your mind. The same MO, the same calling card. A small carved wooden bird left at each crime scene. The victims, all prominent figures in the city, their lives meticulously dissected and displayed for all to see. And then, you see it. A small discrepancy, something you missed the first time around. In the original crime scene photos, one of the victims, a judge, was found clutching a pen in his hand. A cheap plastic pen emblazoned with a company logo. Not the judge's usual expensive fountain pen. A pen that didn't belong. Coincidence? Maybe, but you don't believe in coincidences. Not anymore. You dig deeper, searching for any other overlooked details, and you find another one. A witness statement, dismissed as unreliable at the time, mentioned seeing a delivery van near one of the crime scenes. The van's logo was partially obscured, but the witness thought it might have been a flower delivery service. The pieces are starting to fall into place. Slowly, painstakingly, you're building a bridge between the past and the present. The Phantom is back. And he's leaving a trail. A trail you intend to follow, no matter where it leads. The dust motes danced in the solitary beams slicing through the dimness, illuminated by the lamp on your desk. You traced the same precise wounds, the delicate placement of the carved wooden bird, the signature of a ghost. The Nightingale murders. They hummed in your bones, a discordant melody of failure and regret. Every detail you absorbed was a ghost resurrected, each witness statement a whisper from the past, each photograph a cold, hard truth. Then, the shrill intrusion. Your phone, a forgotten sentinel on the cluttered desk, vibrated with a frantic urgency that cut through the silence. The caller ID glowed, a name you hadn't seen in years, a name belonging to the lead detective currently navigating the fresh horror. You hesitated, a brief, visceral pull to ignore it, to remain cloistered with your dead cases. But the persistence of the ring was a siren call, dragging you back to the living nightmare. You answered, the receiver cool against your ear. Seth, thank God. Get to the penthouse boardroom, now. It's personal. The voice on the other end was tight, strained, stripped of its usual bravado. The city's pulse throbbed beneath the wheels of your cab, a distant, indifferent hum. You felt the familiar tightening in your chest, the unwelcome adrenaline surge. The elevator ride to the top floor was a silent ascension, the polished brass reflecting your grim, set face. The doors hissed open, revealing a panoramic expanse of city lights. A glittering carpet unfurled beneath the towering glass. His shoulders were hunched, the posture of a man carrying too much weight. A forensic analyst was hunched over a sleek tablet, fingers flying across the screen, her brow furrowed in concentration. A senior officer, his face etched with a weary impatience, paced the polished floor, his gaze sweeping over the city as if searching for answers in the distant glow. "Another one, Seth," he stated, his voice raspy, devoid of inflection. Same M.O., the bird, the precision. He gestured to the forensic analyst, who without a word projected an image onto the massive display screen dominating one wall. It was a crime scene photograph, stark and unflinching, almost serene in death, lay amidst disarray. And there, resting on the victim's chest, was the familiar, exquisitely carved wooden nightingale, its tiny eyes seeming to reflect the room's muted light. But then, the forensic analyst zoomed in, her finger tapping the screen. "But this time," she said, her voice clinical, "there was something else, tucked beneath the wing." The image sharpened, revealing a minuscule folded slip of parchment, barely larger than a postage stamp, wedged beneath the bird's intricate carving. The forensic analyst then displayed a second image, a close-up of the parchment, unfolded. On it, scrawled in an elegant, almost calligraphic hand, was a single line of verse. little bird, sing your secret song." The word struck you with the force of a physical blow. Your breath hitched, a sharp, involuntary gasp. The air in the room seemed to thicken, pressing in on you. That line. It wasn't from any published poem, any public record. It was a fragment from a lullaby your mother used to hum, a melody steeped in childhood memory, a secret shared only between you and the hushed corners of your old house. You had jotted it down once, in a moment of whimsical reflection, in the margins of your personal, unfiled notes on the Nightingale case. A discarded theory about the killer's possible fixation on themes of innocence and lost childhood. A thought you'd never dared to voice to anyone. No one. Your gaze darted from the screen to the lead detective, a silent question burning in your eyes. His expression mirrored your shock, a dawning horror replacing his weariness. How could they know that? The forensic analyst shook her head, her face pale. It was carefully placed, almost like a signature within a signature. No prints, of course. This wasn't just a challenge. It was an invasion. The phantom killer had not only returned, but had pierced the veil of your past, delved into the most private recesses of your mind, and plucked out a forgotten memory, twisting it into a taunt. "They're watching me. They always were." The senior officer cleared his throat, his pacing ceasing. "What are you saying, Corbin? That this killer knew you personally back then? That they've been tracking you all these years?" You didn't answer directly. Your eyes were fixed on the screen, on the image of the delicate wooden bird and the haunting personal message beneath its wing. You remembered the discarded theory from your private notes, how you'd mused about the killer's psychological profile, their potential connection to childhood trauma, or a twisted sense of lost innocence. The lullaby, the bird, the specific M.O. It all clicked into a terrifying, intimate pattern. This wasn't just about catching a killer anymore. The game had just become horrifyingly personal. Around you, the air thrums with a manufactured urgency, the scent of expensive coffee mingling with the metallic tang of unspoken pressure. Your gaze, however, remains anchored to the projection screen, where the delicate wooden bird, that silent, carved sentinel, still broadcasts its unsettling presence. The previous night's memory, the whisper of a discarded theory about the killer's psychological profile, their potential connection to. It still hums in your periphery, a discordant note in the symphony of the official investigation. "We have a strong lead," the lead detective announces, his voice cutting through the hushed murmurs. "Finch had substantial financial dealings with our victim, dealings that soured significantly in recent months. Alistair Finch." Your eyes scan his features, searching for something, anything that resonates with the meticulous cruelty of the crime, the artistic flourish of the bird. He looks like a man forged in boardrooms and backroom deals, not one who would carve intricate wooden figures. Forensics found Finch's fingerprints on a discarded coffee cup in the alley behind the victim's residence, a colleague adds, pointing to a grainy image of a crumpled paper cup. Not inside the apartment. Close enough to raise questions. And financial records show Finch was facing severe liquidity issues, a direct result of the victim pulling out of a major project. The pieces begin to assemble, forming a coherent, if unsettling picture. A motive, a proximity, a history of conflict. It's tidy. Too tidy, perhaps. You recall the sheer precision of the crime scene, the almost ritualistic placement of the bird, the deliberate absence of a forced entry. Finch, by all accounts, was a blunt instrument, a man of loud arguments and aggressive tactics, not subtle, silent ingress. We also have a witness, the detective continues, the confidence in his voice solidifying. A local street vendor saw Finch arguing heatedly with the victim 2 nights before the discovery. The vendor described Finch as visibly agitated, threatening to make the victim regret their decisions. The room shifts, the collective tension easing as the narrative takes hold. Finch becomes the focal point, the convenient villain. The murmurings turn to strategy, to warrants and interrogations. You watch them, a silent observer in this rapid construction of a case, and a tremor of unease begins to coil in your gut. It's the same feeling you had years ago, when the official investigation veered down a path you knew, with a certainty that bordered on obsession, was wrong. You zoom in mentally, recalling the texture, the delicate grain, the specific species of wood, a rare, imported cedar. His file, the one you'd perused in the early hours of the morning, described a man whose hobbies revolved around high-stakes poker and offshore fishing. No mention of woodworking, no affinity for intricate crafts. More importantly, no poetic inclination. You pull out your own battered tablet, a relic from your past life, and quickly cross-reference Alistair Finch's known associates. Nothing. No connection to anything remotely artistic or symbolic. You then search for known woodworking guilds in the region, any artisan who specialized in exotic woods, particularly cedar. A few names surface. One of them a master carver known for his intricate bird sculptures, a man named Elias Thorne, who lives a quiet life upstate. Heads turn. The lead detective raises an eyebrow, a hint of impatience in his posture. Irrelevant, Seth, he dismisses, a hand waving away your question. The key is motive and opportunity. Finch has both in spades. The message, you press, ignoring the rebuff. Beneath the wing, to throw us off. Or, you counter, leaning forward, the cold glass of the table a forgotten sensation. It could be the true signature. Finch is a man of blunt force. This crime, the bird, the message, it's art, it's meticulous. It speaks of patience, of a long, simmering, deeply personal agenda, not a sudden, financially motivated outburst. The wood, a rare cedar, suggests a specific, perhaps even obsessive knowledge. Finch isn't known for that. The lead detective sighs, a theatrical display of exasperation. We appreciate your insights, Seth, but we have a solid lead. We can't chase every artistic interpretation of a killer's note. Finch is our man. They are convinced. The red herring, plausible and convenient, has taken root. The real killer, the phantom you failed to catch, is still out there, meticulously orchestrating a grander, more sinister play, while the official gaze narrows on an entirely different stage. You gather your tablet, the screen now displaying Elias Thorne's portfolio of intricate cedar carvings. A stark contrast to Alistair Finch's brusque business profile. The path forward, you realize, is once again yours to walk alone. The tension tightens, a knot in your chest, because the hunt, the real hunt, has only just begun. The chill of dismissal still clung to you, a cold shroud woven from official pronouncements and convenient fictions. They had their narrative, a neat, digestible truth. But the small wooden bird, its wings carved with such deliberate precision and the message etched into its breast, A cryptic whisper from a silent hand resonated within you, a dissonant chord against their carefully constructed harmony. Then the sharp summons. Your phone, a relic you rarely answered, buzzed with an insistent urgency. A voice, tight with barely contained panic, cut through the quiet of your solitary existence. Seth. Now, penthouse boardroom, emergency call. No pleasantries, no explanations. The very tone was a command, pulling you back into the orbit you had so fiercely fought to escape. You found yourself in the sterile grandeur of the penthouse boardroom, a space designed for power and polished decisions. The air hummed with a different kind of electricity now, a crackle of suppressed fear and frantic urgency. The chief investigator, usually composed, ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. A junior analyst, pale and jumpy, adjusted a series of digital photographs projected onto the far wall. Corbin, the chief investigator acknowledged, his voice strained. Glad you could make it. We have. Developments. Your gaze swept across the images. More crime scenes. Newer, yes, but the echoes were deafening. A familiar meticulousness in the chaos, a signature violence that made your stomach clench. You saw the same careful placement of objects, the deliberate framing of the victim. And there, in the corner of one photograph, almost an afterthought, was another bird. This one was larger, a hawk, its wings spread in a silent, predatory glide, carved from the same pale, almost luminous birch as the smaller bird from the earlier crime. Another one, you murmured, the words tasting like ash. Yes, and this time. The chief investigator trailed off, gesturing to the analyst. The analyst, voice trembling slightly, clicked to a new image. It was a close-up of the hawk. And there, etched with the same delicate, almost calligraphic hand as the previous bird's message, was a sequence of symbols. Not words this time, but glyphs. Ancient, almost forgotten symbols that tugged at the edges of your memory, like half-remembered dreams. We're running them through every database, the analyst stammered. Archaeological, linguistic, occult. Nothing. They're obscure, maybe even fabricated. Fabricated? You scoffed, your voice cutting through the hushed tension. Nothing this precise is fabricated. This is a language, a code. You walked closer to the projection, your fingers brushing the cold glass wall beneath the image. The pale birch. The precise, almost surgical etchings. The feel of it. It was not just the symbols or the wood, but the combination. A specific shade of white in the wood, almost like bone. A particular depth to the cuts, suggesting a specific tool, a specific hand pressure. Suddenly, a shard of memory, sharp and unwelcome, pierced the fog of your mind. Your old case, the one that dismantled your life. The victim, a quiet historian with a fascination for obscure lore. You remembered the cluttered shelves of his study, the dust motes dancing in sunbeams, illuminating forgotten texts, and a particular book, from a specific region, the grain, the pale hue. It's too specific. The chief investigator frowned. We're aware it's birch. We've traced the wood type. Common enough. No, you countered, your mind racing, the pieces beginning to shift, to align. Not common. The quality, the density. This isn't mass-produced timber. This is from a carefully selected source. And the tools used for the carving, they're not modern. Look at the edges of the cuts. A specific type of chisel, almost like a stylus, not a blade. You closed your eyes, forcing your mind back to the historian's study. The book, the illustrations, the title. It was something about forgotten artisan guilds, ancient crafts, the lost language of symbols. And then, like a jolt of raw electricity, it hit you. The symbols on the hawk. They weren't random. They weren't fabricated. They were from a specific, incredibly rare dialect of an ancient artisan guild. The historian, your victim, had been researching them. He had a fascination with their use of birch wood for ritualistic objects, and the message on the first bird, the smaller one from the earlier crime. It wasn't just a cryptic phrase. It was a fragment of a known oath from that very same guild, translated into a more modern tongue. A warning, a declaration. It's a statement. Birch was considered the tree of beginnings by this guild, and the symbols, the precise etching. It's a dedication, a ritualistic offering. You turn to the chief investigator, the weight of your revelations settling heavily upon you. The killer isn't just leaving a signature. They're performing a ritual. Each victim, each carved bird, each message. It's part of a larger, meticulously planned ceremony. A progression. The hawk, the tree of beginnings. This is only the start. The puzzle pieces had locked into place, forming a horrifying picture. The killer wasn't merely repeating old patterns. They were enacting a meticulously orchestrated ritualistic narrative. You had a pattern, a structure, and with it, a terrifying glimpse into the mind of a killer who saw murder not as an act of violence, but as a sacred, unfolding art. And you, Seth Corbin, were now inextricably bound to its grim progression. A cold dread had seeped into your bones, deeper than any winter night. A chilling signature, yes, but also a terrifying, deliberate judgment. The symbols weren't random, the victims not merely targets of convenience. They were nodes in a grand, twisted tapestry, each thread leading back to a single, powerful entity. A conglomerate built on the bones of older, forgotten industries. A name whispered in forgotten documents, etched into a crumbling corporate charter you'd unearthed from the city archives. And that name, that legacy, led you now to the gleaming spire of the city's financial heart. Your ascent felt like a climb through the very strata of power, each floor a silent testament to ambition. The old badge, a relic from your past life, felt heavy in your pocket, an anchor to a world you'd sworn off, yet now found yourself dragged back into. You were a ghost in a machine built for the living, determined to find the phantom within. The hum of unseen machinery vibrated through the soles of your worn shoes. Through a sliver of an open door, a murmur of voices, tight with urgency, drifted out. This was it. The nerve center. You slipped inside a utility closet adjacent to the boardroom, the air thick with the scent of cleaning chemicals and stagnant dust. A tiny, almost invisible vent high on the wall offered a direct auditory channel. You pressed your ear to the cool metal, the voices now sharp, distinct. On a colossal screen dominating the boardroom wall, a grid of faces flickered, each etched with a different shade of anxiety. The emergency was palpable, a current running through the very fabric of the building. Another anonymous communique. A voice, stern and clipped, announced. This was the chief of security, his face a grim mask on the screen. Identical to the last two. Demands for restitution and atonement for historical transgressions. A tremor ran through you. Historical transgressions. The ritual. The killer wasn't just leaving clues. They were communicating directly, challenging the very power structure you were now observing. Your gaze, sharp and honed, swept across the faces on the screen. Board members, legal counsel, a representative from public relations. All of them wealthy, powerful, insulated. Her features were sharp, her eyes a glacial blue. Yet beneath the veneer of composure, you perceived a subtle, almost imperceptible tremor in her left hand. It rested on the polished mahogany table, near a small, ornate paperweight. It wasn't the tremor itself that drew you, but the paperweight. A specific symbol. One you'd seen referenced in the killer's cryptic messages, in the ancient texts you'd sifted through. A symbol of cyclical judgment, of rebirth through destruction. A shiver, not of fear, but of recognition, traced its way down your spine. This is not a negotiation. Another voice. Your eyes still fixed on the executive and her paperweight. This is a prophet of vengeance. The executive's gaze, though directed at the screen. You knew, with a certainty that resonated in your bones, that she knew more. That paperweight was no mere desk adornment. You needed a closer look. You needed to confirm the exact details of the raven's eye, the serpent's scales. The vent offered only a partial view, distorted by the angle. Your mind raced. The emergency call was a distraction, a shield. You slowly, carefully eased the closet door open a fraction more. The security chief was still speaking, his voice droning on about protocols. Everyone's attention was fixed on the screen, on the crisis unfolding, on the perceived threat from outside these walls. You, however, were inside, a wolf among sheep, and your gaze was fixed on the executive. You took a single silent step out of the closet, then another. The carpet muffled your movements. Your breath hitched, a silent prayer forming on your lips. The executive was still watching the screen, her hand still near the paperweight. You were almost there, a few more steps, and you could see it clearly. Suddenly, a chair scraped. Not in the boardroom, but behind you. You froze, every nerve screaming. A low cough. Just getting a refill, a voice rumbled. A security guard, his back to you, was leaning against a water cooler down the hall, his bulk obscuring his view of the boardroom door. He hadn't seen you, not yet. He was just a few paces away from turning, from noticing the open closet door, from seeing you standing there. You pressed yourself flat against the wall, melting into the shadow cast by a large potted fern. The guard took a long drink, then slowly, deliberately, turned. His gaze swept the empty corridor, pausing for a fraction of a second on the fern before moving on. He didn't see you. He walked past, his footsteps heavy, heading back towards the elevator bank. You let out a silent, ragged breath, your body trembling. Too close. Far too close. But in that stolen moment, before the guard turned, your eyes had darted back to the executive, and you had seen it. The raven's eye on the paperweight wasn't smooth, but held a tiny, almost imperceptible chip, a unique imperfection. And the serpent's tail, in its endless loop, was subtly broken, a fracture that mimicked a symbol from the deepest, most obscure parts of the ritual. Not just a generic raven and serpent, but the raven and serpent. The killer wasn't just targeting the corporation, they were targeting her, or perhaps working with her. You retreated silently. The image of the chipped raven and broken serpent burned into your mind, a venomous seed of understanding. The game had just become far more personal, far more deadly. A dozen faces, etched with concern, are illuminated by the cold glow of the video conference screen. You stand at the periphery, the executive's unease still clinging to you like a phantom limb. Unacceptable disruption. The CEO booms from the screen, his voice digitized and devoid of warmth. We need solutions, not excuses. You ignore the corporate theater. Your mind is a whirlwind, piecing together the fragments of the puzzle. The historical society, the forgotten scandals, the meticulous planning, and the executive's fleeting expression. The paperweight. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a symbol. A twisted trophy, each victim connected to the historical society, each a player in burying the past. But why? Your gaze snaps back to the screen. The CEO is droning on about damage control, but you see something else. A framed photograph behind him. A sepia-toned image of the historical society's founding members. And in the back row, a familiar face. Younger, clean-shaven, but undeniably the same. The executive. Your breath hitches. It couldn't be. But the pieces click into place with a sickening finality. You step forward, cutting across the CEO's monologue. I know who the killer is. The room falls silent. The executive pales, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. You're the one behind it all. A collective gasp ripples through the room. The CEO sputters on the screen. This is absurd, the executive says, her voice laced with forced calm. Get him out of here. The historical society, you continue, ignoring her. The scandals they buried. You were avenging something, weren't you? Pain, resentment, justification. They ruined my father, she whispers, her voice barely audible. He dedicated his life to that society. And they destroyed him, his reputation, everything to protect their own interests. The paperweight. You remember the inscription. A dedication to her father. A twisted memento of his humiliation. He died a broken man, she continues, her voice gaining strength. And they all lived happily ever after. Until now. You see the logic, twisted as it is. The meticulous planning, the years of simmering resentment. She wasn't just killing. He was correcting a historical injustice in her own warped way. The emergency call is forgotten. The boardroom is a stage, and you are locked in a deadly performance. How did you know? She asks, her eyes narrowed. The paperweight, you say. The inscription, and the photograph. You were there, in the background, watching them all. Suddenly, the lights flicker. The emergency generator kicks in with a jolt. Panic erupts. People scramble for their phones, their voices rising in a cacophony of fear. But you don't move. You see the glint of metal in the executive's hand. A small silver letter opener sharpened to a deadly point. She lunges. You sidestep, narrowly avoiding the blade. It grazes your arm, drawing a thin line of blood. Adrenaline surges through you. You grab a chair, swinging it wildly to create distance. It already has, she hisses, her eyes burning with a fanatic gleam. They all deserve to die, and so do you for trying to stop me. She advances again, the letter opener a blur in the dim light. You parry with the chair, backing away slowly. Then a voice cuts through the chaos. Drop the weapon. The detective. He bursts into the room, gun drawn, his face grim. The executive freezes, her eyes wide with shock. She hesitates for a moment, then throws the letter opener to the ground. The detective moves in, cuffing her hands behind her back. The room erupts in relieved chatter. You lean against the wall, your arm throbbing, your mind reeling. It's over, but the weight of it all settles on you, heavy and suffocating. Later, as the police lead her away, the executive turns to you, a strange smile on her face. You haven't won, Seth, she says, her voice low and menacing. Had you really caught the killer? Or had you merely scratched the surface of something far more sinister? The city lights, a fractured mosaic beyond your window, offered no solace, only a stark reminder of the doubt that gnawed. The words of the woman, now a ghost in the memory of the night, echoed in the hollow chambers of your mind. Had you truly caught the killer? A tremor, not of cold, but of a deeper unease, snaked through your veins. The pieces, once neatly arranged, now scattered, refusing to coalesce into a coherent truth. Then the shrill cry of your phone. A colleague's voice, raw with panic, sliced through the quiet. Seth, it's happening. The penthouse boardroom. He's there. He's got the chairman. The name of the city's most formidable titan of industry. A man whose empire had been built on the ashes of countless smaller dreams, hung heavy in the air. A cold dread settled in your gut, a realization stark and brutal. The previous arrest, the sense of closure, had been a meticulously crafted illusion. A pawn sacrificed to divert your gaze. This was the true endgame. Your breath hitched. A place of gilded power, of hushed deals and impenetrable secrets. But the chairman, a direct link, a thread you had somehow overlooked. The ride was a blur of flashing red and blue, a siren's wail, a desperate counterpoint to the frantic rhythm of your own heart. Each turn of the wheel tightened the knot in your chest. The elevator ascended, a silent, swift climb toward the pinnacle of power, and likely, towards ultimate destruction. The polished steel doors parted with a soft hiss, revealing a scene bathed in the cool glow of emergency lights. The expansive city view, usually a breathtaking panorama, now felt like a predatory gaze. In the center of the room, near the colossal mahogany table, stood a figure. Not the frantic, cornered man you'd apprehended days ago, but a woman. A woman you recognized from the periphery of old case files. A face that had haunted the edges of photographs for decades. A small, antique pistol gleamed dully in her other hand. Her hair, once a vibrant auburn in the faded photos, was now streaked with silver, pulled back in a severe bun. He was the chief archivist, a fixture in the company for longer than most could remember, a silent keeper of corporate memory. "It's you." You breathed, the words tasting like ash. His eyes, a startling pale blue, held the weight of years of simmering resentment. Seth Corbin, the disgraced detective. Always late, always missing the vital detail. Her voice, surprisingly calm, was laced with an unnerving bitterness. "You thought you had him, didn't you? My poor brother. A convenient scapegoat just as he always was. The man you'd arrested, the one you'd believed to be the killer, was her brother. A man he had used, a distraction, a shield, the missing piece, the familial tie, the depth of her manipulation. Your brother?" you questioned, the puzzle finally snapping into place. He was the one who left the message, the one who led us astray. He was always so eager to please, she said, a faint, cruel smile playing on her lips. So easily broken. He just wanted to be part of something, even if it meant being a pawn in my game. He carried out my wishes, those minor acts of cruelty, while I orchestrated the true symphony. Her gaze flickered to the chairman, then back to you. "This room, Seth, holds the ghosts of my family. My father, dismissed without a penny, his innovations stolen. My mother, broken by the shame. All thanks to his avarice." She gestured with the pistol towards the terrified chairman. "He built his empire on the backs of forgotten men, my father among them. The original victim, the one you failed to protect, was merely the first domino. A message, a warning that went unheeded." The air thickened, the unspoken history of decades pressing down on you. Her motive, a festering wound, now laid bare. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about legacy, about reclaiming a stolen future. "And the others?" You pressed, trying to buy time, to assess the room, the distance, the angle. The victims over the years? Each one a carefully chosen brick in the wall of his impunity. She stated, her voice hardening. Each one connected, however tangentially, to the network that protected him, that enabled him, that profited from my family's ruin. They were all complicit. And now, the architect of that ruin will finally pay. Her grip tightened on the chairman's arm. He whimpered, a pathetic sound from a man accustomed to wielding immense power. Not a bullet, but poison. The last ledger entry. He will witness his empire crumble, just as ours did, before he takes his final agonizing breath. You took a slow, deliberate step forward, your senses hyper-alert. This was it. The climax. The last vestiges of your career, perhaps even your life, hung in the balance. The city lights outside seemed to mock you, reflecting in the glass like a million indifferent eyes. You had to stop her, not just for the chairman. No, Seth Corbin. This is the only path left. and you, as always, are merely a witness to the inevitable. She brought the vial closer to the chairman's trembling lips, her movements deliberate, unhurried, savoring the moment. The antique pistol, now aimed squarely at your chest, was a stark reminder of the lethal threat she posed. The ultimate act of vengeance, unfolding before your eyes, in the very heart of the power that had created her. The air crackled, taut with impending violence. Every fiber of your being screamed for action. The metallic glint of the antique pistol, unwavering, pins you in place, a cold, hard truth. This is it. The culmination of decades, poised on the edge of a single poisoned drop. A split-second decision ignites within you, a desperate spark. Your gaze flickers from the pistol to the chairman's vulnerable throat, then to the killer's wrist, taut with intent. The room seems to stretch, time dilating into a viscous syrup. Your body, weary from years of regret and recent exertion, finds an unexpected surge of adrenaline. You lunge, not at the pistol, but at her arm, a precise, calculated strike. Your hand closes around her wrist, a vice of bone and muscle, twisting with all the force you can muster. A gasp, sharp and involuntary, escapes her lips. It shatters against the polished mahogany table with a faint chime, its toxic contents spreading like an inky stain across the pristine surface, mercifully away from the chairman. But the pistol remains, a deadly extension of her will. She snarls, a sound devoid of humanity, and brings the heavy firearm around. You anticipate the arc, a lifetime of training guiding your movements. Your shoulder absorbs the brutal impact as the pistol's barrel connects, a blinding flash of pain searing through you. You don't falter. Your grip tightens on her wrist, twisting, leveraging her own momentum against her. With a grunt, you wrench the weapon from her hand. It clatters to the floor, sliding across the expensive rug, harmless for now. Before she can recover, before the chairman can even process the sudden, violent shift in power, the heavy oak door bursts open. The lead detective, his face grim, enters first, his service weapon already drawn and aimed. "Drop it!" The detective's voice booms, cutting through the lingering tension like a blade. The decades-long trail of blood, the meticulously planned series of murders, all converge in this woman, standing defiant even in defeat. The truth, stark and brutal, settles over you. This was not a new killer, but a legacy of vengeance, meticulously executed. The officers move with practiced efficiency, securing the killer, handcuffing her wrists behind her back. She offers no resistance, her gaze still locked on you, a silent promise of eternal damnation. The chairman, slumped in his chair, is attended to by a colleague, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his face pale and clammy, a little shaken. You gesture towards the killer. She's the one. The connection to the old case, the motive, every last detail. He turns to his team. Secure the scene. Forensics on the vial, the pistol, everything. No stone unturned. As the room fills with the methodical movements of the investigation, a profound exhaustion washes over you, a tidal wave that threatens to drag you under. The physical pain in your shoulder begins to assert itself with renewed vigor, a dull, insistent throb. But it is the emotional toll that weighs heavier, a leaden cloak wrapped around your soul. The phantom killer, the one who stole your reputation and haunted your dreams, is finally unmasked. The pursuit, the endless nights, the gnawing doubt. It all culminates here, in this opulent room, under the harsh glare of emergency lights. Her eyes, even from a distance, find yours one last time, a silent accusation, a final lingering challenge. The justice you sought, the closure you craved, feels less like triumph and more like a heavy, complicated piece. You feel the weight of it all, The years of your life consumed by this pursuit. The cost etched onto your very being. The fight is over. The immediate aftermath is a dull hum, a ringing in your ears as you stand amidst the quiet chaos, a solitary figure in the fading light of a long, dark night. The exhaustion, a leaden cloak, clings to your shoulders, a physical manifestation of the days bled into nights. The city sprawls beneath the panoramic windows, a glittering tapestry of indifference. A hand settles on your uninjured arm, firm and steady. You turn to face the chief, his expression a complex blend of relief and solemnity. His gaze, usually a fortress of scrutiny, now holds a flicker of something akin to respect. "Seth," he says, his voice a gravelly murmur that barely penetrates the quiet hum of the room. "You were right. About everything." The words hang in the space between you, heavy with the weight of years. They are not an apology, not explicitly, but the acknowledgement is a balm, cool and slow-spreading, on wounds you hadn't realized were still weeping. The killer, the architect of shadows, is secured. The meticulous planning, the decades of meticulous silence, all unraveled by your relentless pursuit, by the ghost of a past you refuse to let rest. The evidence is overwhelming. The chief continues, gesturing vaguely towards the door through which a forensics team had just exited, their cases clicking shut like the final pieces of a grim puzzle. The hidden compartment in the old factory, the coded ledgers, it paints a picture, a portrait of obsession spanning 30 years. The same signature, the same twisted philosophy. You laid it bare. You nod, a slow, deliberate movement. The revelation doesn't bring a triumphant surge, but a quiet, profound stillness. It is the peace of a war concluded, not one without immense cost. Your name, Seth Corbin, once synonymous with a spectacular fall from grace, will now carry a different cadence. Not fully restored, not yet, but the foundation of vindication has been laid, brick by painstaking brick. A younger detective, one whose face you'd only seen in passing during the frantic hours of the renewed hunt, approaches. He offers a slight, almost hesitant nod, his eyes holding a new understanding. The chief wants to know if you'll be available for the official debrief tomorrow, he states, his voice carefully neutral, yet edged with an unfamiliar deference. You meet his gaze. Tomorrow. A future event. The concept feels foreign, yet strangely inviting. You had lived so long in the crucible of the past, the relentless pursuit of a truth no one else believed. Now, the future beckons. A landscape unwritten. I'll be there, you reply, your voice a little hoarse but steady. The chief steps closer, his gaze sweeping over the city lights, then back to you. Your instinct, Seth. It was never broken. Just other puzzles that defy convention. The implication is clear, though unspoken. A door, long locked and barred, creaks open just a fraction. A pathway, perhaps not back to the familiar corridors of your former life, but to something new, something shaped by the very ordeal that nearly broke you. The idea settles in your mind, not with immediate acceptance, but with a cautious curiosity. The crucible has forged something new, something tempered by loss and relentless resolve. You look out at the sprawling city, its myriad lights blurring into a shimmering haze. The air in the penthouse boardroom, once charged with urgency, now feels lighter, almost buoyant. The city hums below, unaware of the quiet resolution that has unfolded high above. For you, Seth Corbin, the battle is over, but the war has left its indelible marks. They are scars, yes, but also a testament to endurance. The phantom killer is no longer a phantom, and you, no longer a ghost, can finally begin to breathe. The future stretches, uncertain but open, a new landscape to navigate, perhaps even to protect. You carry the past, but it no longer defines your horizon. Your gaze drifts towards the nascent dawn, a thin line of bruised purple against the black, promising a new day, and with it, a new beginning.